Um, yeah, we did it.
Can you hear me?
I can clear. Woo! Welcome. We did it.
Thank you.
Yay. So tell everybody who you are and a bit about you.
Oh, okay. Well, my name is Mila Johansen, and I teach writing and I write books. And I found my grandmother's memoir about a year and a half ago in all the archives that had been sent to me. And she was a very famous suffragette who was on the front line when women in America got the vote. She was a lobbyist for the movement with Alice Paul and Carrie Chapman Catt. And so I started thinking I should put the book together, and I worked on it, and then serendipitously, I realized 2 months into it that the 100th anniversary was coming up in August. So that was about a year and a half ago. I've been working on it for a year and a half, yeah. And we just got it out last month, and it's a beautiful book. It's called From Cowgirl to Congress, and you get to be a fly on the wall. I've always thought, wouldn't it be fun to be there with the suffragettes and marching and doing it? And you get to be there through my grandmother, Jessie Butler is her name, Jessie's eyes.
Amazing. So what is it people can expect to get from the book? What is it exactly that they can learn and understand?
I think it's like especially delineates how many rights women didn't have, and that we should appreciate what we have and go vote. Especially young people. If young people vote, we can do really well this election. And I think that we need to prize it. You know, Carrie Chapman Catt said it was a hard fight. Prize it. Carrie Chapman Catt was the elder. Alice Paul and my grandmother were the same age, and my grandmother would dine with Alice Paul every day in her house across from the White House. But Alice Paul was a militant, and my grandmother was a politician, so she liked better working with Carrie Chapman Catt, even though she was Alice's friend. And Alice is a very surprising person because she came from a very wealthy, I would have thought she was a hippie at the time, right? But she came from a very wealthy Quaker family, and she ended up getting her PhD in economics from the London School of Economics, which was amazing. And that's where she met Emmeline Pankhurst and learned the militant part. And my grandmother said, without both Carrie Chapman Catt, parliamentarian, and Alice Paul, militant, we may not have gotten the vote that soon. So, you know, we needed both aspects. And the book takes you through all the adventures. And my grandmother came from a very harsh childhood on a Colorado ranch, cattle ranch. And she had a lot going on there, and a teacher got her to Smith College, which propelled her into the center of the women's movement. She helped set the first minimum wage for women. If you can imagine this, Laura, working for $4 a week, she helped it double it to $8 a week, which was amazing. And then I know. So if you can imagine, you know. Anyway, then she went on to help put together the Pulitzer School of Journalism. And then she went to DC to help set the minimum wage for the entire country. And she became the first woman lobbyist in DC. So she was sort of like the Amy Goodman of her time. She was so ahead. I knew her as an older woman who wore funny hats and jewelry and smelt funny, you know, and a lot of perfume. and she helped raise me, and she was my love and my confidant. But anyway, this book has really taught me she was so young and vigorous and vibrant, and she was so ahead of her time in many, many ways that I got to know her in another way. And I always tear up when I talk about her because we were so close. In later years, she spoke all over Hollywood with Gloria Steinem and Marlo Thomas several times, and she took me along. So I got to hang out with everybody.
That's really amazing. What an amazing story. What an amazing family legacy.
Yes, her last speech she made at age 94. Imagine. So we have a lot of time ahead of us, women here. And I think what she did was she worked for women all her life. She saw Susan B. Anthony speak from the back of a wagon when she was 10. And she said, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go help women. And she did until her last breath. She died at age 98. She let her secretary go when she was 93. She was making all those speeches with Gloria and Marlo early in her 90s.
Wow, that's so incredible. What an amazing story.
It's an amazing story. It's a quick read. Her memoir was twice as long, so I cut it in half because I know we're all ADD now. And I made the stories really short and quick. Even my daughter called me last night. I had finally sent her the book, and she said, "Wow, I really like this book, Mom. It has lots of pictures." I put 94 pictures in, rare pictures you've never seen before. And she liked it because she goes, "All the chapters are short. That's my style of reading." So I guess I hit on something. She's 26. So.
And she has lots of letters and collections that should be out there in museums. Can you tell us more about that?
She should. She became okay after she helped women get the vote. She married her husband, who became a attaché at the London Embassy in England, and she went over there to learn all about breastfeeding and things they weren't doing as well here. And she loved London, and she met George Bernard Shaw, and she spoke several times with him because he liked her because she had a speech ready on prohibition. And George was a teetotaler and a vegetarian. So he liked her. And so I have a picture in the book of the notice of them speaking at Essex Hall together and the article afterwards saying that George was loving her speech. And so she also met Lady Astor, who became her best friend. And I have 19 letters to Jessie from Lady Astor, the largest collection in the world. I'd love to get that in a museum because they're handwritten. Well, they're typed and then handwritten. And then both Jessie and Lady Astor had the worst handwriting. She would just scribble, and I can't even read the scribbles, so I couldn't put them in the book. It just goes, dear, 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 this and that. And then she talks about all kinds of things that happened in England, like her son almost died in the, is it Dempsey raid? And she talks about Churchill at her house because Lady Astor was an American, believe it or not, from Virginia. And she became the first woman to sit in Parliament for 28 years. She had these huge balls, and so she talks about Winston Churchill, and she talks about the guy who wrote Peter Pan, can't think of names offhand. And she, you know, all these people, Lawrence of Arabia was Lady Astor's best friend. So the largest other collection in the world are letters from Lady Astor to Lawrence of Arabia. But I have the largest collection in my grandmother's archives. But the great thing too is she was very best friends with George Bernard Shaw, even though he was older. They always hung out. They understood each other. And so Lady Astor spoke, you know, she spoke for women, children, and laborers. They developed the labor department with the Fabians. So it's a very interesting story. My grandmother attending Fabian summer school in England, and 2 summers, and that's where she met George Bernard Shaw. Oh, and then he wrote a letter. He wrote a letter to her after her book came out, Time to Speak Up, which she wrote for women. She taught thousands of women to speak with this book, and she lectured all over the U.S. on big tours. But he wrote a letter, and it was a slam. He said, "Oh, this is the best piece of propaganda I've ever read." He was a very stoic person, you know, and he didn't quite understand the book, even though Lady Astor wrote the foreword for the book. And Eleanor Roosevelt endorsed it and spoke alongside Jessie many, many times when she opened her classes. So Jessie was on the front line of everything. She just ended up meeting people, and they liked her, and they liked her speeches, and it was amazing. She taught me to speak. So I'm planning a lecture tour with the book, and I followed her around a lot of her speeches, not just with Marlowe and Gloria, but everywhere she went. She took me with her.
And how does it feel to be the grandchild of this amazing lady? And she's left you this whole legacy. You know all this stuff about her. How does it feel?
Well, when I was really little, I'd jump on her bed after spending the night, and she'd tell me the stories over and over and over again. And I just loved her, and she was a great storyteller. She could tell me the same story 100 times, and it'd be interesting. Better storyteller than I am. And so when I was 21, somehow I had the presence of mind to go and tape her, and I recorded all her stories. Oh, tell the one about, you know, the cat with 3 legs on your ranch. I used to love it, and I loved all her stories when she got in trouble. So then we just had all the stories, and then when she died, someone sent me, I guess the family, all of her archives, because they knew I was the archivist and I wouldn't throw them away. So I kept everything. I have 2 file cabinets I've been carrying around from house to house for decades. And I finally got into them, and I found these letters from Lady Astor, and I was like, wow, that is something. And I learned about Lady Astor. And so I love having her. And the pictures in the book are so great because you get to be there and see things, and everyone's writing back to me saying, I'm so glad you put the pictures in. That's a hard thing to put pictures in a book. There's a lot of work to it. I had to put the meta files in for museums, but I have 94 pictures in the book, and many of them have never been seen by anyone before. They're rare.
So incredible.
I have a picture of her. This is the rarest picture. People from England will like this. A picture of her sitting with the Fabian summer skull one summer. And all the people are in it. I mean, and an inscription from George Bernard Shaw to her of a book he wrote that he gave her a book as a gift. So
amazing. So why should people be buying this book? And why is this year especially special?
Because it's every woman's story of getting the vote, no matter what country you live in. England didn't get it till 1928, 8 years after the USA. It's every woman's story of getting the vote and how hard it was won. And I always say, any woman getting the vote, any country giving women the vote will get every country the vote eventually. In Switzerland, they didn't even get the vote till 1971. So it's every woman's story. You get to be a fly on the wall. You get to be at the suffrage movement, which is so exciting. And it was a race, and it almost didn't happen. And the president was against it, and then they got him to be for it, and he signed in for it. They tried in 1918, but the flu came in, and it didn't go through by 1 or 2 votes, very slim. And then in 1920, it all happened in Tennessee. It was down to one more state had to ratify. They just needed 38 states, so they all went down to Tennessee, and there was a vote, and they're very against they didn't want the women to get the vote, but this young man, Harry Byrne, was the last man to make the vote, and suddenly he voted for the amendment for ERA, not ERA, sorry, for the anyway, to make the 38th state. And all the men came up to him and slapped him on the back and said, why did you do that? We were going to win. You shouldn't have done that. And Carrie Chapman Catt had come down, all the alcohol people had come down, all the lobbyists, all the big companies, because they didn't want women to get the vote because they knew that they would vote them out of certain companies and monies. And so he said, well, he was real young. He looked like 16 or something, but he was probably early 20s. He said, I got a letter from my mother, and she told me to vote for Carrie Chapman Catt. And so they read the letter, and it said, help Carrie Chapman Catt and get the rat out of ratification. And so everybody was so excited to meet her because she was just a farm woman up in the hills of Tennessee. They all rented cars. People didn't have cars back then. And they all headed up the newspaper men, and they found this woman coming out of her barn with 2 pails of milk. She had just milked her cows. And they interviewed her, and they said, well, why did you send your son that letter? Well, the winters are long here in Tennessee hills, and we read Shakespeare. And Shakespeare's always funning with words, so I thought maybe I could fun with some words. And I didn't read the letter right. I have to look it up here in the book. But it's a very witty, short letter, and that's how 17 million women won the vote that day because of Harry Byrne and his mother.
Wow.
I know, great story.
There's so many great stories in this book.
Yes. There's a story how she took on a senator, and he was a gruff senator. Do you want me to tell that story?
Yeah, good.
Huh? Oh, well, anyway, he was a very gruff senator that always said women should be in the home. They should not be out working, and they should not be out lobbying. And she had to go to meet him because he was powerful, and they wanted to get the minimum wage through. It was for the whole country now in DC. And she wore a cute dress, and she went in, and no one was in the outer office, so she sailed into his office. And back then, you could go to any meeting. You could even speak at him, if you can imagine. And she went into his office, and he looked at her, and he said, what are you doing in here? She said, oh, well, Senator, I have come to present a bill that I want you to help me with because you're so powerful. And he said, why aren't you home having babies? And she said, well, Senator, it's customary to have a husband before you have babies. And he tipped his head back and started laughing. And he said, well, then I'll have to help you. And so suddenly he said, what do you do for recreation? And she said, I go canoeing she was kind of thrown off. She goes, well, I go canoeing up the Potomac every weekend. And he lit up and for half an hour talked about his boyhood in Tennessee. He was from Tennessee too. It all happened from Tennessee. And he said, I used to go swimming, and he got all excited for a half hour. He talked about himself. And then he said, okay, what date do you want? And he set the date for her. He went in, and with his powerful skills, he got the bill through, and women went up from $4 a week to $8 a week. And then he said to her, I will help you get anything through you want from now on. And he became her champion.
So incredible. So many incredible stories in this book. And I think when you get the Audible done, you should absolutely add some of those audibles that your nan, that you recorded of her as like bonuses in your audiobook would be really amazing. For people to hear her voice and her tell the story. What an incredible bonus that would be to the book.
Hey, I was wondering about that because I have a lot of CDs of her speaking. I even have a video of her speaking. And maybe I should put a CD in the book. I don't know. I've been thinking about that. I don't know. What does anybody think? We have her voice.
Would you want to hear from this lady herself?
Oh, I love my grandmother so much. She was my love. When I went to college, we missed each other so much. We would write 2-page letters to each other forever. And guess what? I have all of those because I have the ones she sent me because I never throw anything away. And she typed hers, so I found hers in the archives.
Wow.
Yeah.
So beautiful. So where can people buy this book? Is there a special, when's the best time to buy? Where can they find you?
Well, the book is on Amazon, and you can buy the paperback for $17.95, or you can buy the Kindle version. And actually this weekend on Sunday, we're starting a week-long sale where you can buy the Kindle version for $1. And I would encourage all of you to do that, because if you could do it for $1, even if you already have the other book, or maybe you want the other book, or maybe you don't listen to Kindle, you could help this book. It's a very important book for women all over the world, get to bestseller. So even if you don't listen to Kindle, which I don't, you could still buy the book and encourage your friends. And if we could get the bestseller, then more and more people will love to read this book. There's a lot of good reviews that just came up about the book this week, so you can read those. I put up a video right under the book that I made about Jessie and voting and pictures of her. And so listen to it. It's 5 minutes. It's just a YouTube, but it's very, very telling and inspiring. So, but if you could all buy the Kindle for $1, starting Sunday the 14th.
This Sunday.
Yeah, this Sunday. And if you could buy it for $1 and any day of the week, all the way to next Saturday, then we could get to the bestseller, which I think would be really great, because more and more people would read this book and get inspired, and make sure that people vote. That's going to be our big way to win this voting session right now, and that it's important. And these women fought so hard for it. Can you imagine not having the right to vote? It's a privilege.
Absolutely. So incredible. So it's Congress. Cowgirl to Congress. Woo!
From Cowgirl to Congress on Amazon. Or I think you can order it from your bookstores now, because I did get it on Ingram, but I'm still inspecting that. So you probably can order it from your local bookstore too, but on Amazon for sure. And then leave a review. If you leave a review, it helps the book rise in ranks. And I think there is no other book, Laura, there's no other book out right now of someone who was there talking about blow by blow exactly what happened and how they did it and everything. And and then she became a wife, a mother, a social changer. She worked all her life, so she can really relate to mothers. And she fought for breastfeeding for a long time too, which I think was very gallant. And she really fought for daycare centers so women could go to work. She thought there should be a daycare center in every business, and she actually spoke out for that till the very end.
Amazing. What an incredible lady, and congratulations on putting it together and creating this incredible book about the legacy that is your nan. How incredible.
And I'd like to say thank you to you, Laura, because Laura is helping me get the book out and get the word out, and she is fantastic. So if you have a book, I would make sure you get her on your team.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for taking the time to jump on a live with me today. This won't be the last time. that you see this incredible lady. We're going to keep sharing this out and making this big, making a part of this 100 years celebrations for women winning the vote. Yay! So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Awesome. We'll speak to you soon. Bye.